Let's start with what actually happened. Over the past few days, reports came in from across Ohio of a loud, sudden boom. People described it as something that shook their homes, strong enough to get their attention immediately. There were no storms in the area, no obvious source, and that's what made it stand out. At the same time, others reported seeing a bright flash in the sky. In some cases, it was described as a quick streak of light, followed by the same booming sound. So, what's important here is that these weren't isolated reports. This was experienced across a wide area, and that includes regions stretching beyond Ohio, even here in Kentucky. People noticed it. Either they heard the sound or they saw the light. The event was significant enough that the National Weather Service looked into it, and their assessment points to a meteor event. More specifically, what's called a bolide. That's a type of meteor that enters the atmosphere and produces a bright flash. Often it's followed by a sonic boom. So, what people experienced wasn't an explosion on the ground, it was something happening high above, an object from space, entering the atmosphere at extremely high speed, interacting with the air in a way that created both light and sound. That delay between the flash and the boom is also important. Light reaches us almost instantly, but sound takes longer to travel. So when people saw the flash first and then heard the boom seconds later, that tells us the event occurred at a distance, up in the atmosphere. Being here in Kentucky, this one feels a bit closer to home. It's not just something you read about happening somewhere else. It's a reminder that events like this are happening around us more often than we realize. They just don't always make themselves known in such a noticeable way. And in this case, it definitely did. Now that we've gone over now that we've gone over what people experienced, the next step is understanding what this actually was. You'll hear a few different terms used when talking about events like this: meteoroid, meteor, meteorite, and it's important to separate them because they describe different stages of the same object. A meteoroid is simply a piece of rock or metal traveling through space. These can range in size from tiny grains to much larger fragments. When that object enters Earth's atmosphere, it becomes a meteor. What you're seeing at that point is not the rock itself, but the light produced as it interacts with the atmosphere. The speed creates intense heat and pressure, and that's what generates the visible streak across the sky. If any part of that object survives the journey and reaches the ground, that's when it becomes a meteorite. Now, in this case, what's being described is something more specific: a bolide event. A bolide is a larger, more energetic meteor that produces a very bright flash and often an audible shock wave. These are the events that really stand out. They're not the quick, faint shooting stars most people are used to seeing. They're brighter, more powerful, and they carry enough energy to create a noticeable physical effect. As the object enters the atmosphere at extremely high speed, the pressure builds rapidly. It's not just heat, it's the force of the air compressing in front of it. At a certain point, that pressure can cause the object to break apart or even explode midair. That explosion is what produces the sonic boom people hear on the ground. So when people describe a flash followed by a loud boom, what they're actually experiencing is the atmosphere reacting to that object, moving through it. The light comes first, then the sound follows as the shock wave travels outward. And in events like this, the energy involved can be significant, even if nothing even reaches the ground. So what we're dealing with here is not just a passing object, it's a high energy interaction between something from space and our atmosphere. And that interaction is what made this event so noticeable. And if this kind of material interests you, if holding something that actually came from space resonates with you, I do carry a selection of meteorite specimens through Crystal Earth Gallery. That includes the Campo del Cielo, the Field of Heaven meteor from Argentina, which is a well-known iron meteorite with a strong grounding presence. as well as Nantan meteorite specimens, which have a very distinct structure and history behind them. They also offer pieces that are wearable, like pendants. So it's not just something you study, it's something you can actually carry with you. If you're curious to see what these look like or want to learn more, you can find those through crystalearthgallery.com online and through my live shows. It's one thing to talk about these materials, but it's a very different experience to actually hold one. And we have new merch, new t-shirts in the store, so check it out. Now, the next question is, why did this event stand out the way it did? Because the reality is, meteors enter Earth's atmosphere every single day. Most of them go completely unnoticed. They're either too small, too high up, or they burn up so quickly that there's no visible or audible effect at ground level. So what made this one different? It comes down to a few key factors working together. First is speed. Objects entering the atmosphere are typically traveling anywhere from about 25,000 to 50,000 miles per hour. That's right. At those speeds, even a relatively small object carries a significant amount of energy. When that energy is released, especially if the object breaks apart, it can produce a very bright flash and a powerful shockwave. Second is the angle and depth of entry. If a meteor comes in at the right angle, it can penetrate deeper into the atmosphere before breaking apart. The lower that breakup happens, the more likely it is that people on the ground will both see and hear it. That seems to be what happened here. The report suggests a strong visual event followed by a clearly audible boom, which points to a lower altitude fragmentation. Then there's geography. In regions like Ohio and Kentucky, you have relatively flat terrain without major natural barriers. Sound can travel more freely across that kind of landscapes. So when a shockwave is produced, it can carry across a wide area without being significantly blocked or absorbed. And finally, timing plays a role. If this occurred during darker hours or low light conditions, the brightness of the event would have been much more noticeable. Even a brief flash can light up the sky, enough to catch people's attention immediately. When you put all that together, high speed, the right angle, fragmentation at a lower altitude, and conditions that allow both light and sound to travel, you get an event that people don't just miss. They can't. They feel it, they hear it, and in many cases, they step outside to try to understand what just happened. That's what separates something like this from the thousands of smaller, unnoticed events that happen all the time. This one didn't just pass through, it made itself known. Now, this is where things get especially interesting. Whenever you have a bolide event like this, something that produces a flash and a sonic boom, the next question is always the same. Did anything actually make it to the ground? And the answer is, it's possible. When a meteor breaks apart in the atmosphere, it doesn't always completely burn up. If the fragmentation happens low enough to the ground, if the material is dense enough, some pieces can survive that final part of the journey and fall to Earth. Those surviving pieces are what we call meteorites. In an event like this, if material did reach the ground, it likely fell across what's called a strewn field. That's an area where fragments are scattered, sometimes over several miles, depending on how the object broke apart and how it slowed down as it descended. The size of those pieces can vary quite a bit. Some may be very small, almost like pebbles. Others could be larger, depending on how much of the original object held together during entry. Most commonly, what you'd expect to find are stony meteorites, something called chondrites. These are some of the oldest materials in the solar system, and they often have a dark outer surface that forms during their passage through the atmosphere. The outer layer is called a fusion crust, and it can give the meteorite a slightly burned or blackened appearance. They also tend to feel heavier than a typical Earth rock of the same size, and many will respond to a magnet due to their metal content. Now, at this stage, it's not always immediately confirmed whether meteorites have been recovered. It can take time for researchers or even members of the public to locate and verify any fragments, but events like this do create real opportunities for recovery. And given the reports we've seen, the brightness, the sound, the wide area coverage, there's a reasonable chance that at least some material may have made it down. Which means, quite literally, there could be pieces of this event sitting on the ground right now, somewhere between Ohio and Kentucky. And most people would walk right past them without realizing that what they're looking at. This often turns into door stops if they're big enough. So the possibility is there. And for those who know what to look for, this is the moment where observation turns into discovery. Once we understand what happened, the next question is, why does something like this actually matter? And there are a few different ways to look at that. From a scientific standpoint, meteorites are some of the most important natural materials we can study. Many of them formed at the very beginning of the solar system, over 4.5 billion years. They've maintained relatively unchanged since that time, which means they carry information about the conditions that existed before Earth fully formed. So when a meteorite lands, it's not just another rock, it's a preserved record of early solar system history, something that can be studied, analyzed, and compared to what we already know about planetary formation. There's also a more immediate level of importance when it comes to fresh falls like this. When a meteorite is recovered shortly after landing, before it's been exposed to weathering or contamination, it has a higher level of scientific value. Researchers can study its composition more accurately and place a premium for collectors, often place a premium on those types of specimens because of their traceability and condition. From a collector's perspective, and this ties directly into what we do with minerals and meteorites, events like this create a moment in time, a known fall in a specific region with documented reports. That adds context and significance to any material that's recovered. It becomes more than just an object. It becomes part of a recorded event. And then there's the broader perspective. This is material that originated outside of Earth. It formed under completely different conditions, traveled through space, and then intersected with our atmosphere in a very direct way. That alone gives it a level of uniqueness that you don't find with terrestrial minerals. Even without going too far into interpretation, there's something worth recognizing here. These events remind us that Earth is not a closed system. We are constantly interacting with the environment beyond our planet, usually in ways we don't notice. But every so often, something like this happens, and it becomes very clear. What we're looking at is not just geology. It's part of a much larger system. And occasionally, a small piece of that system makes its way here. If there's even a chance that material from this event made it to the ground, the next question naturally becomes, what should you do if you think you found something? First thing is simple. Don't assume it's just another rock. Meteorites can look surprisingly ordinary at first glance, but there are a few key things to check. Start with the surface. Many meteorites have a thin, dark outer layer called a fusion crust. It can give the stone a slightly burned or blackened appearance. Next is weight. Meteorites tend to feel heavier than typical Earth rocks of the same size. That added density is often noticeable right away. You can also check for magnetism. Many meteorites contain iron, so they'll respond to a magnet, even if it's subtle. If you think you may have found something, try to handle it as little as possible, especially with bare hands. Oils and moisture can affect the surface over time. If you can place it in a clean, dry container, that would be beneficial. And just as important, document where you found it. Location matters. A verified find isn't just about the object itself, it's about its connection to a specific place and event. From there, you can reach out to a university, a lab, or someone experienced in meteorite identification to take the next step. Because in rare cases, what looks like an ordinary stone can turn out to be something that's been traveling through space for billions of years. And events like this are exactly when those discoveries happen. And events like this don't just happen in the distance, they happen around us. And in this case, across Ohio and into Kentucky. There's a good chance many of you either heard it, saw it, or know someone who did. If you experienced this event, if you heard the boom, saw the flash, or noticed anything unusual, take a moment to share that. These firsthand accounts are valuable. They've helped build a clearer picture of what actually occurred and how far the effects reached. If you captured anything on camera, security footage, dash cam, even just a photo of the sky around that time, that's worth documenting as well. And I'm greatly appreciative of anything that you can send to me at crystalearthgallery@gmail.com. And if you're out walking, hiking, or just paying closer attention to the ground over the next few days, keep this event in mind. Most people don't expect to find anything, which is exactly why things get overlooked. You don't need to go out of your way, just stay aware of your surroundings. Because occasionally events like this leave something behind. And when they do, it's usually found by someone who simply took the time to notice what others passed by. If you do come across something unusual, or if you have footage or a story to share, I'd be interested in seeing it. This is one of those moments where observation matters and where the community can actually play a role in what gets discovered next. Events like this are a reminder that we're part of something much larger than what we see day to day. A single moment, a flash in the sky, a sound that carries across states, and suddenly we're aware of that connection again. Something traveling through space for billions of years intersects with our atmosphere, and for a brief moment, it becomes part of our world. Whether or not fragments from this event are recovered, the fact remains. This happens here, in our region, within reach of where we live and move every day. And every once in a while, those events leave something behind. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to follow or subscribe to the Crystal Earth podcast so you don't miss future episodes where we explore minerals, meteorites, and the deeper patterns that connect. If you know someone in Ohio or Kentucky who experienced this event, share this episode with them, and I'd be interested to hear their perspective as well. So I'm open channel for that. If you come across anything unusual, or you think you may have found a meteorite, feel free to reach out or share it. I always enjoy seeing what turns up after events like this. You could also follow along on social media, Crystal Earth Gallery on Facebook and Instagram for more content, updates, and upcoming shows. Thanks for listening and keep observing. Uruguay amethyst clusters. They are all free-form. Some of them are really good jewelry-sized pieces. Work really well in jewelry making because they're small enough for pendants. Even some of them you maybe do like big rings. And then a lot of them are very nice, dainty. This is almost going in the lines of pink amethyst. You can see how it's changing color there a little bit. Pink amethyst. They are of the small size. They're all free form. Some of them have cuts, flat edges, areas where they can be stood. Some don't. You're buying from me in bulk with this material. It's a random pull, random selection. So you get what comes in the box, and you get to see if some of them have flat spots or more or less crystals, etc. But all in the same kind of size range. Here's a nice example of a flower, kind of a button or a flower. And a nice place where it started, and then it balloons out. Very cool, very cool. It's really nice. It's a Uruguay amethyst. It's very affordable. Very, very affordable material. And then smaller sizes like this, great for just throwing some wire on or doing a macrame wrap. Easy to wear. You can wear it like that or wear it like that. Uh, Easily made into jewelry. Nice purple, nice small size. These will typically go for about $10 per piece. $10 per piece on these. Smaller sized. There's another one like that. They vary quite a bit in shape and color and everything. They're very varied. Uruguay amethyst clusters.